Hello everyone, my name is Tanvir and you're watching Shoolini Spotlight. Today's guest is Dr. Ritika Joshi, a historian and professor at Gautam Budh University. Hello ma'am, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and it's so good to be in this podcast. And I'm sure that Shulini must have done so many good podcasts before also. So I thought that if I'm getting the opportunity, then why not? So I'm here, hence,
That's wonderful. Nice to have you. Now,
same here.
personally, my interest in history came about when I was a very little kid. There's this one thing, my parents always tell this story that when I was about, 5 years old or something, I used to go and tell everyone that I was a Japanese fighter pilot and that I died in the war. Now, for people who believe in reincarnation and stuff, quite a compelling story. For others, like me, it's probably embellished to some degree. But one thing is for certain, I always had that interest in the early 20th century, and especially the world wars. And everything about the world wars completely fascinated me. And it sort of
Right.
snowballed from there. So, what is your interest or your spark in the subject? Because I see you have extensive history, pun intended, in the subject. You have pursued all of your, high school, what do you call, after high school studies, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just briefly tell you about my academic background. I did my major in history. I'm history honors graduate from Hindu College, Delhi University, and then I moved on to Jawaharlal Nehru University for my masters in history, and then later on to international relations for MPhil and PhD. So my interest is mostly on the economic history, and in economic history specifically, there are so many people who work on the ancient part of it, medieval part of it. There is a lot happening always since the human civilization has been there. Economics has been such an inextricable part of it. But my interest lies in the modern and the contemporary history, how the world has evolved the way it has, and what is your perception of globalization? Like, I remember we were taught during our MA days that there's always been globalization. We have some rudimentary traces of globalization starting from the beginning of the civilization, to which I don't agree to some extent. I mean, someone can, but I don't agree with that. I think it is something which is very very modern. It has taken place in the early part of 20th century or the late 19th century. Before that, if we describe something, or if we describe a particular trade route, just because there is contact or economic association between two countries, between two continents, I somehow think it still feels to qualify as globalization in the true sense. So it is something which popped up in the modern history, because globalization is not simply about that you are exchanging the goods, people are going around, religion is spreading, war is happening, diseases are spreading, and world is so interconnected. It is also about the volume, and most importantly, it is about the pace, the speed with which it is happening, and like the way it is happening now, right?
So, before we
So
come to contemporary history, let's examine the Silk Route, right? Because you have quite a bit of papers and articles about Silk
yeah,
Route.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
for me personally, when it comes to history as a subject, I always prefer it to be like a story, like a narrative,
yeah,
right? I'm not
yeah,
concerned exactly with exact dates. That's some people would
right,
prefer. I'm not a historian, but I love stories. So let's go back to the
yeah,
story of the Silk Road, right? So it started
right,
somewhere around the first and second century.
right, right,
Yes. So, and it is also quite interconnected between India, China, and also Rome. So,
right, right.
imagine this. If I am a merchant in that era
Mhm,
and I want
mhm,
to perhaps take my goods from Xi'an,
mhm.
China, and I want to
Right,
sell them off in Rome, maybe
right,
not me, I
right.
guess I wouldn't fare very well on that difficult route. Imagine there is a merchant, all right? and they would wish to
Right.
sell their goods. So, what goods, first of all, do you think were being transported on the Silk Road? And what is the significance of Xi'an, that city in China? And what was the journey like, do you think? That's the kind of story I was wondering if you could tell.
Good that you have talked about this story, because being a historian myself, and I'm not very much preoccupied with the dates. I mean, a fair idea should be there. Obviously, you cannot confuse
Yes,
14th century with the
indeed.
20th
Yeah,
century.
sure.
That kind of confusion cannot happen. So, okay, let me tell you the story of the Silk Road. Uh, Very, very fascinating story. Something which is very modern, and Silk Road. To by now, it is a complete buzzword. Also, if
Yes.
you just Google Silk Road, there's a Silk Road marketplace which will also open up, and then there's also a music band which is by Silk Road or Silk Route. Silk Route is the name, right? So
Also, Alibaba also set their headquarters in Xi'an,
yeah.
or did something
Oh
to do
yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah. Obviously, right. That's called Silk Road headquarters, right?
Yes, yes,
So this story begins with the Xi'an. It is where the king, the emperor, asks his cultural ambassador, or matlab, asks a particular courtesan that you go to this particular part of Central Asia, ask for their help, because there's a certain tribe which are going to attack us, and if we have help from the other allies, we might be saved. So that was a trigger point, and this particular person, he travels all the way to the Central Asia, and in between, when he is undertaking this journey, he came across various places. Sometimes when we like don't go outside our comfort zone, be it that empire or a particular state, city, country, we really do not know how the world exists. And this might sound metaphorical in today's time, but think about the time when it is happening 100 or 200 BC, when the world is still not visible, though it is there. But the kind of interconnection, that kind of visibility is not there. Someone who is sitting in China cannot imagine how Rome would look like unless and until you have traversed through that path. So he did. He went around and he realized that there's a lot to discover. And this entire area, which is, so there are two things. One is the it is Belt and Road Initiative, if you know. So
yes.
in this Belt and Road Initiative, there is also a maritime route, and there is also overland trade route. So overland trade route, it is the beginning, it is the starting, and that's where high Himalayas also come into picture, because if you look at the map of China, Tibet, India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and if you look at the chain of mountains which cover the entire area, had there been no political boundaries, had the 20th century would have taken place in would have taken shape in a very different way, had there been no colonization, had we not fought our struggle, and the world would still be seeped into that empire era. The entire region almost looks one, but history happened the way it happened, and now we're a different political entities, right? So what happened, he went, and not only he went, see, once you have established the contact between the two empires, one in China, one in Central Asia, and then he realized that there is a way up till Rome also. So now what do you know? So there's one person who is going back to you with all the information, that why are we restricting ourselves uh, only within China, when there can be greater demand for our goods in the west also, in the Rome also, and in between, we are actually geographically bound by a lot of passes, lot of roads, and there will be intermediaries. We can make a lot of, I'm sorry, I'm using the word, we can make
No problem.
so many we can make so many allies, and there can be so many commodities which can be exchanged. When you start exchanging commodities, what do you get? You get a lot of profit, you get money. And what is this profit, money, treasury all about? It is the cornerstone of any empire, right? If you even see the Indian ancient texts like Arthashastra, what is their foundational pillar? The treasury should be very strong. A king should have a grip, right, on the treasury, and trade has always been part of it, always. But what sets Silk Road apart from the other trade route is that it's enormous. it's like thousands and thousands of miles, and there are so many countries involved in it. There are so many intermediaries involved in it that sometimes calling it a Silk Road is also a misnomer because there is
Yes,
no single road
because
as
there
such.
is no single road. There are multiple
Right,
different networks over a vast period of time, right? So
right,
now,
right,
now that our merchant has reached Central Asia, right, and he has found
right,
out perhaps from someone else that Rome exists.
right.
So what are some places on the route which he would visit, and how does he exactly get his goods to
Hmm.
Rome? Are there intermediaries like middlemen, or does he travel
Yeah.
all the way by himself?
No, no. See, what happens is that you don't travel all the way from China to Rome. So many cities sprung up. Why am I using the word sprung up? Because comets break any feudal remnants. It helps a place to be transformed into a city. It gives cosmopolitanism. We all the time talk about it. It happens because those particular towns were actually bustling, not only with the people from different culture, but they were also bustling with like a lot of commerce is getting exchanged, right? So what do you have? You have money on you, and when you have money on you, when your economic preoccupation, it is far more than geopolitical interest, then trade is going to bloom. And fortunately it was that time. And now, not to be confused, it doesn't mean that Silk Road was blooming all the time. It wasn't. There was so many time when it was broken. And whenever empires have been strong, it is flourish. So if you are a merchant and you start your journey from Xi'an, and then you go all across the Tibet and take the route to High Pamirs and a branch which goes off to Mongolia, then there's a southwestern branch also which comes to India. Then there's a southern route also which traverses elsewhere. So somewhere you'll stop and you will say, "Ki, look, I've got silk from here." Not only silk, there were hundred of commodities which were getting transported. I'm using the word silk, but definitely silk wasn't the only one. In fact, there are so many social scientists who have contested this term. They say it's not only silk, there is also shawl which was getting transported.
Mhm.
And you know that there's a very famous route, salt route also, because salt route has some connection with India also, especially our borderland area. So there is salt route also. Then there's a spice route also, which is through the sea. A porcelain route also. Then tea route also. So horse route also, in fact. So these all the routes combined, you will stop somewhere in, let's say, nearby the junction of India and Tibet somewhere, and you will say, "Look, I have got silk from there, and now I stop. You give me my due, and I'll pay some tax, permit duty, whatever, because now you want your good to be carried somewhere else." And he'll give something to you in writing, "Okay, this good has come to here, and now I'm going to take it off." He'll, let's say, traverse till Bukhara. Though I have taken such a vast distance, I'm sure there must be pit stops in between also.
Yes, sure.
And he goes till Bukhara, and then as so Bukhara became a very, very vibrant cosmopolitan city, like very vibrant. And in Central Asia, the past remnants of Silk Road, they are so visible. And in fact, if you look at all the soft power which China is trying to derive, because China is a country which is actually devoid of soft power. It is hard power, right? Hard
Yeah.
economic power, military power. But definitely there is no Chinese dream like we have American dream. All right. So so in a way, so the all the time when China is trying to show the world that, look, we have culture, we have given so much to the world, and in fact we sit right at the place where so many cultures have intermingled. It is
Exactly,
deriving
and we'll come
all
back
its.
to China later. But
Yeah,
so say we've reached Bukhara now, yes?
yeah,
So on
yeah.
from
Okay,
Bukhara, we go to Persia. So just a little bit, since it's
right.
topical, could you talk about the significance of Persia? Then perhaps when we reach Rome, some frontier cities where they would sell off their goods, where they would get to
Hmm.
then the rest of Rome, perhaps, yes?
Hmm. So Persia is again a very, very cosmopolitan city. So Persia is in Iran. It's in modern day Iran,
Or you mean
and you're
Tehran? Tehran
Yep.
is in Persia.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Very good. In fact, good that you asked this question because the way Iran is in turmoil today, it sometimes
Yes.
become very hard to imagine that this was the place. I mean, of course, there have been time in Iran has been peaceful. I'm not saying that it has been in the turmoil all the time, but this has been the place where all the time we are hearing of Silk Road, Silk Road, Silk Road. Now, this is a place where actually important things were happening. And if you look at what is the major export by the Persia, where people they stopped when they were traversing through the Silk Road, it is the culture. And it looks very, very cliched when I say culture because then every country would say ki we also export our culture. But Persia has done it in such a significant manner. You see their architectural visibility everywhere in Central Asia. Forget about Central Asia, even in India also. We talk of, ki, see, this is a way this particular dome is shaped. It is because it is deriving its idea from the Persia. So how did this idea travel? I mean, I'm sure that not every mason he was, traveling to Persia and then was getting an idea of it कि अच्छा अभी घर जाके अभी हमको ऐसे डिजाइन करना है सेंट्रल एशिया में इंडिया में पाकिस्तान में अफगानिस्तान में why and how is this idea flourishing? It's because of the trade. It's because of the traders who once went to the city and then they realized ki okay, this looks very, very beautiful. And what happened is that when you say traders, do not think that they're only doing the trade, they're only doing the hard economic trade. There are a number of things that they're doing simultaneously. Like I talked of Persian architecture, in a similar fashion religion also spread, like the Buddhism from the India. How did it spread? In the similar fashion. How did the Persian architectural motif spread? In the similar manner. How did Persia became a city of commerce, culture, food? We talk of the Persian food. In fact, in the Silk Road, in the entire Silk Road, apart from the silk, another important thing which has seen a major export, it is the intermingling of the food culture. So many things. In fact, there's a very famous restaurant in Delhi itself, Bukhara, and it is the same city. So I don't know how many people know about it, but it is just the same. So, and even apart from it, where is the other thing where you see the intermingling of the culture? So sometimes we think ki kya karna hai, like culture, it's like the all the diplomatic talk. It doesn't concern our daily life. Kya karna hai abhi padhai likhai mein jaan ke ki Persia mein kya hua to kya? Even on the clothes, even the fashion industry picks it up in a great way. You see Persian motifs even on the clothes. I mean, there have been major shows, fashion shows, which have been done taking a particular country and how they used to do the weaving and what were their designs like, which has happened. So the way we see life, and we talk of all the time the beauty of life, the beauty of culture. It happened because people are going from one place to another. To say it very simply, they are not only going, when they come back they bring with them a entirely different world. And if they're influential, and mind you they are influential, this is the reason that they're able to do trade. Commoners are not able to do it. Even today the trading and the business families, they are not commoners. It means that they're already influential. So when influential people are going, when they are sending their intermediaries, what do they bring with them back? A entirely different world. All the beautiful part that they have seen that they want to transplant in their own country. And over a period of time, like thousands, hundreds of like years and years and years, everything becomes mix, right? So sitting in the India, we can very well talk of the Persian architectural motive, we can talk of the fashion industry, we can talk of the restaurant, we can even talk of the kind of clothes they wear in movie when they have to show a particular culture, like there's this movie
Exactly.
Dhurandhar, and
So now
yeah.
that
So
we've established Persian culture indeed has had a lot of influence, and no doubt it had that influence because of its importance or significance on the Silk Route. Yes. So
yep.
now one could say that perhaps since the Romans were buying a lot of Persian goods as well, perhaps because they were connected. I guess they had a bit of a love-hate relationship. They were rivals,
Most
but
of the
they
countries
respected
have.
each other. Yes. and a
Most of the
lot of
countries have
Persian
lovely tradition.
culture and goods were making it over to Rome. So now, on the final leg of the journey, our merchant perhaps has heard from other middlemen about the culture of Persia. Now, what does he hear about Rome specifically?
Uh, it's a case of East meets West, and both are induced by each other. Orient meets Occident culture, and they are forever, enthralled by each other. So this is how we see the West. Even today, if you go to the West, you are just enthralled. It's like a different thing altogether, and similar for them also when they come
Yes,
to the
they are
East. They
also
also
quite
right,
enthralled by
right,
our culture.
induced by the yeah, yeah. So now, why do we keep focusing on Rome that much? One is that ki, ek to it was the end point, not end point, but yeah, in a way we can say that it was the point where we see कि अब यहाँ से branch off होना थोड़ा सा कम हो जाता है. So now you came to Persia and then you gave your slave, and now the Persian merchant he will travel to the Rome and he will get it delivered. And now you're saying that what is the connection between the Rome and the China? Directly, right? Right? How do they see each other? So one thing happens in in your I'll tell you something, and I will also draw a comparison. Though it sounds like a very rudimentary comparison, but it will give you an idea what I'm trying to say. There is a very good article by the Anderson which says that nationalism is most potently lies in your mental state, in your mind. Like you haven't seen all the Indians, right? But still, when the newspaper comes at your doorstep, you open it up and you feel like, oh, I'm Indian. If something is happening far down south, you feel, oh, it's going to affect me. In the east, affects me. Why? You haven't seen, you have no personal connection with all these billions of people, but it's in your mental state that this place is mine. It gives me a sense. In the similar way, when there is a trade war between the US and the India, you may be impacted very late in the ladder, but still in your mental state it's like, oh, something is happening between the countries in which I reside in one, and it is going to affect the citizens of my country because they are doing the commerce, so it means it is bad, something which is not going to be beneficial. So it's a mental state. In the similar fashion, when China starts exporting goods, and so there are goods coming from the Rome also, right? It's mutual. And Rome starts sending good to Central Asia, to the Tibet, to the China, etc. It's more in their mental state that now we have something all across the world, because you cannot see, there is no digital penetration as of yet like we have now, where we can trace कि आपका सामान consignment अभी किस stop पे पहुंच गया. You have no idea. The system is entirely built on the trust connectivity, and this is where clan and caste also comes into picture, that why certain clans and castes they were able to rise high up. So they might not be, let's say, because see, there are no telephonic conversations either. So you cannot say that my good is reached and okay, I'm doing good and everything is fine. You cannot tweet, you cannot post on Facebook, you cannot share a picture on Instagram that see I have landed in Bukhara and then give
One
like
would
slight
even say
wink
those were
picture.
better times
Yeah, yeah, quite right.
for
So
this
this is now
tradition.
yeah, right. So this is now in a like mental state. Okay, now we have a grip over the world. Now we have a trade happening in the far west. Like they keep on saying the far east, like we have a trade happening in the
Far,
far west. And
yes.
same and in the same way, Rome would say, oh, this is like we are able and again also do not confuse कि सिल्क रूट का जो ट्रेड है उसका वॉल्यूम बहुत ज्यादा है कंपेयर टू जीडीपी. ऐसा कुछ नहीं था. इट्स लाइक 3 to 4% ऑफ द टोटल एक्सपोर्ट इन जीडीपी विच इज वेरी लेस इन अमाउंट. सो डोंट थिंक कि वॉल्यूम इन द ट्रेड इज हैपनिंग जैसा आज के टाइम पे होता है और कोई एफटीए साइन हो रहा है फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट. द सिस्टम, द सिल्क रूट system, it is quite broken also. So many merchants and travelers they used to die and no
Hmm.
one cared about them. So जितना स्मूथ लग रहा है सुनने में पढ़ने में उतना स्मूथ नहीं है for the one who is actually traveling on the ground,
Yeah, I
right?
for
So
one would
stories.
not survive that journey.
Yeah, me also. It's very difficult.
Yes.
It's very difficult and it's very inhospitable for most of the parts. Apart from the cities, who tells you about the like deserts that they have went through? Because we have no memoir. So there is no journey by the Silk Road traveler who say that I've been to the desert and this is how I survive. Nothing. So we have mostly views from the up, from the people who have, team with them, and they have other, or their journey has been sponsored by their empire. So that's a very different thing. But when you're an individual merchant or the trader and your, let's say, big business house is asking you to go, you might survive, you might die, who cares? Especially in that time, so nobody's going to like tweet on your part, this person has just died on his journey from, from the China to the Rome. It might sound comical and it might look comical also, but it's actually not. I mean, if the trade routes have survived, especially the overland trade route, if they have survived, it's because the endurance of these men, that they have been able to gather information, pull it back, talk it about it in their political empire or the country or the territory, and also sometimes on the decisiveness of those particular political authorities who decided to carry on with the route. Because if states are weak, trade routes, they absolutely crumble. It is so much contingent on how strong your state government or the national government is. It's happening even now. It has happened
Yes,
back then
now
also.
since we are on the topic of now, and since we are
Yeah.
here in India now,
Yeah.
first of all, India also has had a very significant history with trade, especially going all the way back to the Indus Valley Civilization. The seals
Yeah.
from Indus Valley have been found as
Yeah.
far as Mesopotamia. So you said
Yes.
in the
Yes.
starting of the interview that you don't believe exactly that what was happening in terms of trade back then is specifically globalization. Is that true? So,
Mm-hmm.
since you mentioned that, what can we say about the trade that was happening then and how exactly it is different, in your opinion, from the understanding of globalization that we have now? Because when we
Mm-hmm.
term modern globalization, it started, say, in the nascent phases when the era of discovery, right? They say the Europeans started traveling through sea routes and doing spice trade with India and whatnot. And then it sort
Mm-hmm.
of grew in the Industrial Revolution. And now they also say that India experienced globalization in a true sense only starting from the 90s. So can't we say that there was some form of globalization perhaps that was going on far, far back in history? And if not, how is it different from what's going on now?
We can definitely say that there is some sort. Obviously, there's certain evidence that there was interconnectedness. There were multiple trade routes in existence. Trade was happening. We have also found Roman gold coins in India, right? So, what is my contention is that. Uh, Globalization, it's something which is very modern in origin. It sounds very easy to say that if globalization at its very basic about mutual exchange, then it has always happened. You talk of trade, culture, religion, and whatnot. It has always happened. That's
Exactly.
how human beings have survived, right? So there has been eternal globalization, and till the and until the time we are on this earth, it will always be there. I do not think so, because words have particular context, and also what seems on the surface, it's not that way. So globalization means, or I mean, how is it different? It's different because I said volume, second I said pace, but third is accessibility. Like in Gupta time period, when we have found the Roman gold coins, we have no evidence, we have no idea how common man was living. We actually don't have any proof even now. But today, you and me sitting at our respective homes probably can order something from UK or something from America, something whatever is within our reach, and we can get it to our homes. We do not need someone from the Indian government, a particular minister. We need to go to him, request him that we need something from the UK or US, and then he would say, "Ki, it depends on your, condition. Where are you in the merit list?" So globalization is also about accessibility. It's about the accessibility, that how people across economic segments are able to reach to the fruits of this global interconnectedness. That's also globalization. So why digital culture is actually making world globalized or democratized in roughly true sense. It's because it's accessible. Its pace is amazing. It's like some seconds you can tell me what's happening in the Shoolini. You have to just give me the picture and tell me, look, this has happened. In just seconds this will happen, and I'll have the this entire imagination or the idea, ki, all right, this has happened. So in the same way, why the world is more globalized, it's more interconnected. Today you can go for studies in, like, let's say, Japan. Today you want to marry someone in UK, you can. You want to have commodities from Iran, you can. You want to have Central Asian cuisine, you can have. You need not belong to a particular merit list. And I know that people might say that this is contentious also, because there are people who are still not able to, do the basic things or access to the basic thing. But I'm talking about, like, majorly what has happened across historical time span versus what is happening now. So the kind of accessibility which it has till a certain economic class, though I think that there's enormous space for even now to world to become more equal. And uh, the wonderful speed, and of course the volume which you cannot even imagine. The entire Indian market is flooded with Chinese good. Even if you go to UK, it is again flooded with Chinese good. How is this even happening? I mean, I'm
So,
sure that if
yes.
this was, yeah,
To sum it up, you mean that the globalization that we believe in right now these days is because of one, the efficiency with which we're able to do
yeah,
it, and the availability to the
absolutely,
masses. So we did not, if I were a merchant, or maybe forget that, if I was a peasant in India back then, all those years ago,
yeah,
I would not
yeah,
have the efficient and available, readily available access to all of these goods, though they were being
yes,
transported, and there were a lot of
yes.
learned people that had access to a lot of knowledge and information about the world. Me, as a regular lowly peasant or any regular person, would not have that access. So the modern
And
sense of
and
globalization is
today,
that.
even
Mhm.
even that peasant has, why? Because of the mobile. And
Yes. Okay.
sorry that I've cut you. Please go on.
Yeah.
It
No.
was actually good to hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. No. This is exactly what I'm trying to sum up. Is what you're meaning, right? Is that correct?
Mm.
So
Yep. Yep.
yes. So well, I guess our time is up now. So I won't take much
Yep.
more of your time. So. Yeah, thank you so much for sparing more time for me and for Shoolini Spotlight. And it's been an absolute delight to speak to you. Perhaps we can do this some other time again with some other
Yep.
topic, some other interesting stuff. And obviously, history is
Okay.
absolutely fascinating and extremely vast. Going back to the history of mankind, millions of years, we have no idea what we were up to those years, right? So, well, not no idea. Perhaps we have a little bit of archaeological idea, but we're not. The thing about history and archaeology is that we can never be for certain exactly what was going on.
Right.
We can make an educated guess, and it has
Right.
been an absolute delight to hear everything you had to say about these topics. So, thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Samir, for having me. And you actually have a very good idea of how history has evolved. Like, you have some good idea. So I would say that keep reading, because you ask very, very good questions, and it shows the kind of interest you have in this subject. So great to have a conversation with you, and all the best to you and to the
Thank you.
Shulini universe.